Salam and welcome to Aga e-learning and online tutoring. We're back today with another case study session. We're going to be looking through the book or the autobiography of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, the book entitled My Life and Ethiopia's Progress. So as we remember, the case study is to examine grammar, syntax, and morphology in the Amharic language. Of course, since this book is an autobiography, the the first writing of it was in Amharic, and as we recall from the last session, there was a translation which was written by Edward Ullendorff. So we've got another section, just a small excerpt from the book today that we're going to be examining, so that we can just do a quick analysis of the grammar, syntax, and morphology, and draw up ways of understanding and memorizing how that these language systems work in the Amharic language, especially compared to the English language. So if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy what you learn in the lesson, then please subscribe and make sure to hit the notification bell so that you receive a notification when we post new videos. Also, if you have any suggestions or if there's anything that you would like to know more about, then please write it in the comments and we'll hope to make a video about that in the future. So let's get started. So we have here the excerpt for today. As we remember, the last one was about something else. It was taken from a different part of the book. This is taken from chapter 12. Okay, and it's about the chapter 12 is really explaining the developments for modernization in Ethiopia and the efforts of the imperial government of that time to modernize Ethiopia and all of the infrastructural advancements that were taking place, etc. So this is specifically on the printing of books and the availability of books, and therefore the increase of the level of literacy which took place throughout the country and with the people. So I'm going to read in Amharic and then we'll go into the English just like we always do. So if we begin. በ1915 ዓመተ ምህረት ጀምሮ በልዩ ገንዘባችን ሁለት የመጽሐፍ ማተሚያ መኪና ገዝተን ስላቆምን ብዙ መጻሕፍት በግዕዝና በአማርኛ በትርጓሜም ስለታተሙ ሕዝቡ ሁሉ በጥቂት ዋጋ እየገዛ በማንበቡ ብዙ ጥቅም አግኝቷል። So I tried to read that nice and slowly, but now we'll look at the English translation, which is written by Ullendorff. So from 1914, and as we see in the Amharic, this is Amete Mehret, so that's the Ethiopian calendar, the Age of Mercy. From 1914, 1921 to 1922 in the Gregorian calendar, so that's AD. Onwards, we purchased from our private money 2 book printing presses and many books in the Ge'ez and in the Amharic with interpretation were printed. The entire people, therefore, derived much benefit from reading what they could. The entire people, therefore, derived much benefit from reading what they could buy at a low price. So they were reading what they could buy at a low price. So we're going to be breaking down, as we remember, all of the clauses and the parts of speech from the Amharic and seeing how we arrive at this particular translation. What is the linguistic process in order to arrive at a correct translation, as Ullendorff has. Of course, there's different. Ullendorff could have arrived at any type of translation, as long as it was consistent and accurate according to what was originally written. Okay, there's different styles of speaking and writing in every single language. So of course, Ullendorff arrived at this particular translation. It's not to say that there couldn't have been anything done different, couldn't have been any improvements. It's all down to opinion, really. But it's as as learners, we should view these things with a descriptive mindset. That is to say, not saying, this translation particularly is right, this translation is wrong, but that, this is the translation that was arrived at, and to remain observant instead. Okay, so beginning as we did in the last session, we're going to be looking at the different parts of speech in the Amharic text and breaking it apart according to the morphemes and seeing how the words and the sentence comes together in the translation. So we'll start off with the discourse marker. Okay, this states exactly when the events which His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie is about to describe took place. So he says Be Asrazeteng Meto Asra Amist Amete Mehret Jemro. So you know, so a literal translation of the preposition be, as we looked at last time, would usually be in. It could also mean through if it's instrumental. It could mean with. Um, in this case, if we make the translation to the English language, we could say in this time, but because we've got this gemro here, gemro, which would mean starting, starting. We could say starting in, but more commonly in English speech, we would probably say starting from. Okay, so this preposition here would mean in, and it would make sense if we said it in the English language, but more commonly, how we would translate that is starting from. Okay, so starting from 1915, 1915, Ameta Mehret, the age of mercy. And as we saw in the Ullendorff translation, this is around 1921 to 1922 in the Gregorian calendar. Okay, so starting from 1915, Amete Meheret. Beliu genzeb atchin. Be liu genzeb atchin. Be, as we know, could mean in, it could mean through. In this sense, it would mean with, because we're talking about with what that we performed a certain task. So in this sense, it's with our own money. Liu Liu quite commonly could mean special, right? But in this sense, it would mean private. And if we look in the Wolf-Leslau dictionary, we'll see that one of the meanings could be private. Okay, so with our, genzeb means money. Genzeb is a noun for money. Okay, there's other translations, as we've seen from a lot of the Amharic words. There's multiple translations that could be used, but in this sense, we're talking about money. With private money, if we add achin, achin is a possessive suffix for our, so it's the first person plural possessive suffix achin, genzeb achin, with private money our, with our private money, with our own money. Okay, and then if we look here, we have hulet. Hulet isn't expressed by the numerical. It's expressed in the actual word, and that means two. Okay, so and is one, and hulet, sost, arat, amist. Hulet is two. Okay, yemetzaf, matemia, mekina. So this part is quite interesting. Yemetzaf matemia, mekina. And these words all go together. Yemetzaf, four books. Okay, matemia is an instrumental noun. So if we take the infinitive verb matem, matem means to print. Means to print. It's an infinite verb, matem. And if we add on to the infinite verb iya, matemia, now we have an instrumental noun. An instrumental noun essentially means whatever that the verb is that's being made instrumental, it's a thing which allows you to perform or it's a thing through which you perform that action. So in this sense, the action is printing. So it's a thing which allows you to print. Okay, a thing through which the action of printing is performed. That's what an instrumental noun is. And then we have the word machina. And this is why it's interesting, because most of the time when we hear the word machina, we think of a car. And if we were to ask many of the youth today in Amharic, could machina be used for any other type of machine other than an automobile? They probably wouldn't be able to say yes. But it seems here that the context in which that His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie is using the word machina is referring to the machine which prints books, so a printing press, essentially. The literal translation would be two book printing machines. Hulet ye metzaf matemia mekina. Ye metzaf matemia mekina. Okay, so two book printing machines, or two book printing presses. Gez 10. Gez 10 is a gerundive. Okay, so it would mean buying. This is a gerundive. Silak omen. Silak omen. Now, ak ome could mean various things. Ome, as many of us might know, means he stood, or to stand, right? So ak ome is the causative for to stand. So it would mean to make stand. Sometimes, however, when we say ome, it means, or mekom, it means to stop. So if we say makom, it means to put a stop to. However, in this sentence, we are talking. We are this. The context of this sentence does indicate that we are saying to make stand, or rather, the more efficient translation would be to establish. So sila, with this simple past verb, and the simple past verb has the we suffix, this we subject pronoun suffix at the end, n, in, ak omen, that means we established, and sila means because. So because we established, buying, but a more comfortable translation would be having brought. Because we established having brought two book printing presses with our own money. Okay, so now we have one of the clauses in full here. Because we established because we brought and established two book printing machines with our own money. Gez 10, this is gerundive, and this is simple past, ak omen, with the sila preposition, which means because we established and brought hulet yemetzaf matemia makina, two book printing presses, beliyu genzebachin, with our own money. Okay, so starting from 1915, because we did this, ብዙ መጻሕፍት በግዕዝ እና በአማርኛ እና በትርጓሜም. ብዙ is a quantifier meaning many. መጻሕፍት is plural for መጽሐፍ, meaning books instead of book. We have here የመጽሐፍ, which is book. መጻሕፍት is a plural for books. This here is supposed to be ጻ. በግዕዝ እና በአማርኛ በትርጓሜ ም, right? In Ge'ez, and we have our conjunction here. በአማርኛ, in Amharic, and also, m, also, this suffix here means also, in translation. በግዕዝ, in Ge'ez, and in Amharic, and also in translation. ብዙ መጻሕፍት. We have lots of books in Gi'ez and Amharic and also in translation. Sila, as we saw, when it's attached to the simple past verb, as it is here, means because of. Tattama. Tattama is the passive verb for attama, and that's where we get matemia from, right? Attama means to print. Tattama means to be printed. Tatamu is the third person plural. They were printed. Third person plural, they were printed. Because they were printed. Sile tatamu. So now we have two clauses, okay? But this last clause here, because they were printed in Gi'ez, because many books were printed in Gi'ez and in Amharic and also in translation, that's now going to be relative to what we're going to look at on the next slide. Hizbu hulu. Hizbu, this is a collective noun. The people. Hulu, all or whole, all the people. Be, tikit, this is a quantifier also, but this doesn't mean many like bizu, this means few. So this is a quantifier. You know, we have words like tinish, which means small, but when we're speaking about the quantity of something, if we wanted to say that the quantity was small, we would say tikit, it was few. And be, as we know, could have various different meanings. In this sense, it would be at a low or a few price. A few price doesn't really sit well in the translation, so we would say a low price. Waga means price. Be tikit waga. Hizbu hulu be tikit waga. Iyegeza, iyegeza, right? While buying, as we looked at in the last session, iye, this prefix here, really translates to while, and it's used alongside with the simple past verb a lot of the time. When it's used with the simple past verb and it's not the ending of a sentence, when it's not used with a modal verb like neber or no, it acts a little bit like the gerundive. So while buying, I would say in the translation here, it's more more aligns with the gerundive. When in the translation, the gerundive would be more suitable. So while buying at a low price, we're talking about the books here, because they were printed in Gi'ez and in Amharic and also in translation, that's many books, all the people, while buying at a low price, bemanbebu, bezu tikim, be means, as we know, could mean in, could mean at, could mean with. In this sense, it would mean by. This is an instrumental preposition. Be manbebu. Manbebu is a it should serve as an infinitive verb. However, sometimes the infinitive verb serves as what's known as a verbal noun. So here, the term reading is being used as a noun by their reading. Okay, and when it's a verbal noun, of course, we can add possessive to a noun, right? We can't add possessive to a verb per se. We can inflect the verb, but we can't make the verb, we can't give possession to the verb. We can give possession, however, to a noun. So if this infinitive form is being used as a verbal noun, then we can add the possessive, and that's exactly what's done here. Beman bebu. However, we're speaking about all the people. U would usually be his. Would usually be his. So the third person masculine singular. However, we're talking about the people, but this is a collective noun. So we're speaking about multiple people. So in the translation, even though this makes sense in Amharic, we know that we're talking about the people as a collective. But in the English language, we wouldn't say his reading, because that wouldn't make sense, because we already mentioned the collective noun as people. So we would say their reading. But if we were to be very precise in the Amharic, we would say beman bebacho. But because it's a collective noun, the Amharic would allow for the third person singular male to be used, u. And manbeb is taken from the verb anabebe, which means to he read. Manbeb means to read. In this sense, as we said, it's the verbal noun, so it means reading. By their reading, bezu tikim. Bezu, as we said, is a quantifier. It means many or much in this sense. Tikim is benefit or advantage or privilege. Tikim is benefit. Ageng toal. Ageng toal. Ageng toal is a perfect present verb. So this essentially is the gerundive form with an al suffix added onto it, and that creates the perfect present form. So essentially what the equivalent in the English language would not be he obtained, it would be he has obtained. In this sense, we're talking about multiple people, so we say have obtained. So that have for the perfect present in the English language, the has or the have is a modal verb used to express the perfect present tense. And how do we express that in the Amharic language? With the gerundive form with al at the end. So agingto would be the gerundive form. Agingtoal would be the perfect present. So have obtained, he has or they have obtained or have gained. So they have gained much benefit by their reading. By the whole people have gained much benefit by their reading, buying at a low price many books because they were printed in Ge'ez and in Amharic and also in translation. Okay, so if we were to look at the syntax of the entire sentence, there's a few clauses in here. Some of them are the gerundive, some of them are subordinate clauses. Some of them are subordinate clauses, some of them are the main clauses. We've got the discourse marker starting from 1915, Amete Merat. We established and we brought and established 2 book printing machines, 2 book printing presses with our own money, right? And then if we skip forward a bit, and buying many books, the whole people buying many books at a low price, or because many books were printed in Ge'ez and Amharic and also in translation, then we could say all the people, while buying them at a low price, have had much benefit, have obtained much benefit to their reading. Okay, so this is the syntax. It's a little bit more confusing and all over the place from the last one. As we remember, we just took every clause and just worked our way backwards with the last one. It hasn't been so simple with this one, probably because these nouns such as many books, the clauses haven't been so simply ordered. Okay, but with time and with practice, we'll learn how to place in each sentence or in each clause, the translation, how to configure the right translation from each clause. But essentially, it's good to really go down to each morpheme, look at each of the morphemes, and then on top of that, each of the parts of speech, and then look at the clauses that we've figured out the translation for, and figure out what are the differences in the Amharic translation to the English translation. So that's all for today's case study. Today we were studying Amharic language, a case study for grammar, syntax, and morphology. Okay, we were looking at my life and Ethiopia's progress. Next week, Monday, we're going to be looking at the same book, but a different part. See if there's any other interesting parts that we can extract and analyze. Okay, if you enjoyed the content today, or if you have any questions, put them down in the comment. Like, subscribe, and also hit the notification bell. Any future videos are going to come up on your screen in the future. Thank you.